Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'du. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you, and to our respected guest who has traveled all the way from Malaysia to Melbourne. Brother Lim Jui Soon and his team, we are honored by their presence here and pray that Allah will reward them for their efforts and sacrifice. Let me begin with a brief introduction about Brother Lim. Brother Lim himself is from Malaysia, and before reverting back to Islam, he was a Buddhist and a Christian. Brother Lim himself is a founder of an organization called Interactive Da'wah Training. Brother Lim is an active da'i and is well known for his talks on comparative religion. The topic he will be talking about today is da'wah, the roles and methods. This lecture will roughly take about an hour, followed by a question and answer that we encourage everyone to participate in, and encourage strongly, that is. So I'll now welcome Brother Lim Jui Soon, and please,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, all praises to Allah with His guidance and His permission that we have the opportunity to meet this evening. Inshallah, we're going to discuss a topic that actually I was asking the organizer whether do you think it's suitable for me to talk this topic to the young people here. It will be a quite heavy topic actually, but what I would do is I would make it simple. Hopefully that all of us after this discussion we get some idea of how to convey the message of Islam to our non-Muslim friends, colleagues or our neighbors. Okay, there are various ways of doing da'wah, various ways. There's no such thing that one method for all. Yeah, I believe that every method, there are many methods that are all very useful. It's good for you to know all the methods, and for me, personally, I prefer to use a different kind of approach as compared to most of the approach that you can watch in YouTube and things like that. And the reason why, because my initial stage of knowledge that I learned for comparative study is through Sheikh Ahmad Didat. How many of you know about Sheikh Ahmad Didat? So he used to have a dialogue or debate or lecture. So I learned a lot comparative religion through his lecture, through his debate. And I noticed that his approach is not that suitable for our Malaysian people, our Malaysian context, or in Singapore context. And also, most of his approach, the Christian missionary already replied to his argument. They already have answer towards his argument. So this approach, now if you were to use a similar approach towards the non-Muslim or particularly towards the Christians, it doesn't work. It's not that effective anymore. So what kind of approach we supposed to use actually to do da'wah to non-Muslim? When you discuss about religion, generally we want to talk about my religion is right, your religion is wrong. Mine is better, or your scripture has some problem, or we try to interpret their scripture. This kind of approach usually is, if you were to discuss with a non-Muslim, it's only one-off. People won't come back second time. How many people do you like people to interpret your Quran according to their own way of interpreting? Do you like it? Do you want to try something? Let me show you something. Let's say if I'm a non-Muslim, if I want to tell you something wrong with your Quran, I just ask you a simple question. For example, in Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse number 30. This ayah is very long. One of the verses that Allah has mentioned is talk about every living thing is made of water. Have you heard about it? Everybody heard about it? Okay, good. Do you believe in this ayah? Do you believe it?
Yes.
Okay, let's try. What is the meaning of this ayah? Every living thing, right? Living thing is made of water. But the problem is they started to ask, look at the jinn. Jinn is created from Fire. Is there any water in it? But the Quran says every living thing is made of water. What about the angels? It's created from light or nur. Am I right? Is there any water in it? But the Quran says every living thing is made of water. Are you telling is something wrong with the Quran? It's inconsistent. In Surah At-Tawbah, chapter number 9, verse number 30, the Quran says the Jew call Uzair or Isra the son of Allah. The Christian call Jesus the son of Allah. All Christians will agree what the Quran says, because the Quran says the Christian call Jesus the son of Allah. The Christian agree, no problem. Son of God, no problem. But problem is that the Jew disagree, because Jew is only believe that there's only one God, there is Allah. They don't believe that God have a son. But the Quran is accusing the Jew have a son. Now, how can you say that the Quran is consistent? How can you say the Quran is the words of God, where He's mentioned something that which doesn't happen, which is not true? How do you feel when people interpret your scripture in this way? You don't feel happy, right? But if you continue to discuss like this, what will happen? Similarly, if you were to do the same thing towards their scripture, they will feel very offended. Can you agree with me? It's just like I myself, I did that before. I know how people feel. For example, like I used to tell people that what made me choose Islam. One of the problems is that because I was a Christian before, I'm a Bible student. I did my Bible study in South Australia, Adelaide. So when I read the Bible, I noticed that there are so many verses in the Bible that is very ungodly message. Okay, it cannot attribute to God. For example, in the book of Genesis, chapter number 2, verse number 2, it said that God created heaven and the earth in 6 days, but on the 7 days God rested. Rested, is it a human attribute or godly attribute? Yeah, human attribute. So if human attribute, then who wrote it? It can never come from God. It surely come from a human being. Now, if I were to quote such a quotation and do my interpretation, do you think that the Christian feel comfortable with me? For example, in the book of Genesis, chapter number 1, verse number 3 to number 5, and so on, the whole chapter talk about how God created the whole universe. You see, the first day, the creation of God, they have light as well as day and night. Second day is the sky. Third day is the earth. Fourth day is the sun. Fifth day is the seas, animals. Sixth day is human being. And 7 days God rested. This is the message in the Bible. But if I want to interpret the Bible according to my way, let's have a look. How can they have first day on the first day? How are we going to get day and night? Day and night is the rotation of the earth and rotation of the sun. Problem is the earth was created on the third day. The sun was created on the fourth day. How can you have day on the first day? I understand that. I mean, if I were to use such an argument towards the Christian, do you think that the Christian brothers and sisters, they feel comfortable with me? Yes, I can win the argument. But do you think that they feel comfortable? This kind of discussion doesn't last. Usually one off. What I want to introduce you to today is that a method that where I feel that we can continuously have a lot of discussion with them, exchanging view, exchanging idea. Okay, the approach that I prefer to use is called conscience approach or fitra approach. Okay, that when you want to do da'wah, it's better not to discuss about religion. It's better to discuss about knowledge. Knowledge is neutral. You agree, I agree, right? But if I were to discuss about religion, then usually it won't last. This is through my experience for the past 24 years of doing da'wah. So I would encourage that to use the conscience approach, the fitra approach. How to do da'wah? By using fitra approach. You see, I do not know your context here, of course, this is my first time to Melbourne. I do not know the non-Muslim, what is their thinking, what kind of question they ask you. I do not know. I have no idea. Maybe you can ask me after this. But what I will say is that how to start the conversation, how to start to discuss with them. If you want to do da'wah. Generally, if they believe in God, regardless whatever God they worship, your job is to, maybe you can start by asking them, are you an Australian? I do not know here. Is it true? Most of you are not Australian, right?
Yeah. Yes and no.
Yes and no. What do you mean? PR.
Australian born.
Australian born? Oh yeah, some of you Australian born. Yeah, okay. So what you can do is that you can go directly. Sometimes you ask them, well, do you believe in God? Many of them, they will say yes. My duty is I will say that me too. The second question, what is your opinion about this universe? Do you think it is God? Or it is God's creation? Or it is not God? Which one? Generally, those who believe in God, particularly Christian, they will say that the universe is creation of God. And tell them, me too. I believe that too. Is it similar? Yeah. We both are good people. We want to worship God. Okay, we also believe that the universe is a creation of God. Now the third question, how to differentiate God and God's creation? If you ask the non-Muslim, they have problem. They have problem because their religion never teach them to differentiate God and God's creation. Their religion only teach them to worship God and do good. But in Islam, for us in Islam, good is not good enough. Good must come together with the word right. Good and right have to be hand in hand. They have to come together. How many of you familiar with Robin Hood? Not P. Ramlee, yeah? Robin Hood. You know, I remember last month I was in England. I went to Nottingham with our brother here, Brother Joe. We went to Nottingham, and I came to know that Robin Hood is from Nottingham. So I asked the local people, is he a good guy? Everybody say he's a good guy. I say, it is a right guy. Everybody say no. I say, why? He said he liked to steal the money from the rich and give it to the poor. So he is good, but he's not right. So most religion out there, they are good people. No doubt about that. They are kind people, good people, friendly people. But in Islamic point of view, they are not right. Why? Because they do not know the Creator. They can't differentiate Creator and creation. But in fact, majority of them are worshipping the creation instead of the Creator. In Islam, we do not start by worshipping God first. We first must be able to differentiate who is God, who is the God's creation, or who is the Creator, who are the creation. How to differentiate these two. This is the most important thing before you want to talk about submitting yourself to whoever. We must be able to differentiate Creator and creation. Our brother here, do you know how to differentiate men and women?
Yes.
Very sure? He's very sure. Is there any possibility that you want to marry a woman at the back, but end of the day you marry the man next to you?
Possible.
Impossible. Why impossible? Because you can differentiate men and women. How are you going to differentiate men and women?
We can't because we vote yes, no, it doesn't problem.
You look at the characteristic of a man, the characteristic of a woman, you can be able to differentiate. Am I right?
Yes.
Even gold. You know, if I want to sell you, I have a gold bar here, I'd like to sell to you, would you buy it? I say, you know, the market price is 200,000 OC dollar, but I'll sell you at 150,000 OC dollar. Would you like to buy it? Maybe. What would you do first? You'll bring this gold to the goldsmith shop to check. Am I right? Maybe bring 3 to 5 goldsmith shop, not one, just to be sure. You want to know that it is pure gold. Am I right?
Yes.
Now, this because you want to differentiate pure gold, mixed gold, or even gold plated. Not everything that glitter is gold. You want to be able to differentiate. Similarly, about God, this is the main things that people like to worship, right? Want to worship God. So they must know how to differentiate God and God's creation, or creator and the creation. What is the characteristic of the creator? What is the characteristic of the creation? So, yeah.
The one who create human being, universe.
Yeah.
Creation is, we are the creation of God.
Interesting. Very good. If you were to ask those who worship God, those who believe in God, regardless whatever God, you just ask them, does God ever living or not ever living? Does God ever living or not ever living? God is ever living. What about the creation? It's not ever living. Can you give me example? What are the things that is not ever living? Human being, animals, plant, trees, whatever. True? Now we can differentiate. Creator is ever living. Do you understand what is the meaning of ever living?
You do not perish.
Do not perish. There's no beginning. There's no ending. Am I right? There's ever living. What about the creation? All have beginning and have ending. True? If you ask those who believe in God, they will agree with you. Why? The conscience will tell them that this is a characteristic of God, ever living, no beginning, no ending. The creation, not ever living. All have beginning, have ending. Next questions. Does God bounded by time, space, and mass? God doesn't bounded by time, space, and mass. What about the creation? All bounded by time, space, and mass. True or not true? When you remember you study physics, yeah, the basic physics teaches us that everything that in this universe, that physical, all are bounded by time, space, and mass. So you can differentiate. God is not bounded by time, meaning that God has the knowledge of the future. God knows the past, present, future. He's not bounded by time. Every human being in this earth, we are bounded by time. None of us will have knowledge of the future. None of us going to know what is going to happen tomorrow. Can you agree with me? And none of you are going to know what I'm going to talk after this. Okay, so you can differentiate. The next one. Does God need sustenance to survive? In fact, He is the one who provides, right? So God doesn't need sustenance. The creation needs sustenance. Meaning that we need sunlight, we need oxygen, we need food and drinks to survive. God, He doesn't need. And He is the one who provides, in fact. Does God need to rest and sleep? No. The creation need to rest and sleep. Now, let's repeat the whole thing again. Creator, you ask their conscience, they will tell you ever living, no beginning, no ending, not bounded by time, space, and mass, doesn't need sustenance, doesn't rest and sleep. The creation is just opposite. True? Now, Fitra, their conscience, be able to recognize the characteristic of God. Also be able to differentiate the characteristic of the creation. Now you ask them the next questions. Since there's so many gods out there, so many gods, in Malaysia we say, banyak Tuhan dalam pasaran. Ask them, is there any one of them, any gods that they worship, have these 5 characteristics? Ask them, have these 5 characteristics? Can you give me one name? Just ask them to give one name. No need too many, just one. What answer would you get? They will say no. Or I can't think of anyone. In fact, when they say no, in fact, they already reject all the gods out there. None of them have this characteristic of God, including the God that he worshipped. Why? Because he doesn't give the name. Which none of them have this godly characteristic. And ask them again, is there any scripture in the world today that tell you the creator or God's characteristic? Talk about these 5 characteristics. Is there any scripture in the world today? Most of them will tell you, I do not know. but I do not find anyone in my scripture. And we can show them, we can show them a verse in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse 255. Ask them to read it. And they will discover that the 5 characteristics just now is mentioned in this ayat. So the first one, they said no. In fact, they recited La ilaha. When they said no, remember I said, is there any gods that have these 5 characteristics? When they say no, they in fact already confess La ilaha. If they can accept the Surah Al-Baqarah, illallah. Technically, that person is already a Muslim. They'll be able to recognize the Creator. They'll be able to differentiate the Creator and creation. But if you ask them, which one would you like to worship, the Creator or creation? Everyone will tell you, I want to worship the Creator. You won't worship the creation. So technically, you already a Muslim. La ilaha illallah. Now continue. Now, what we can do is like, if I were to write down these 5 characteristics, both 5 each here, and I will put Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam name number 1 first. Okay, let's see whether Muhammad, is he a creator or creation? Wait a minute. We agree just now that creator is ever living. Creation is not ever living. Agree? So is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ever living or not ever living? So not ever living, just put a mark here. Continue. God has no beginning, no ending. Creation has beginning, ending. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he has beginning and ending. So he falls into the category of creation. God is not bounded by time, space and mass. The creation is bounded by time, space and mass. What about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? He's bounded by time, space and mass. Fall into the category of creation. Number 4, God doesn't need sustenance. The Creator doesn't need sustenance. The creation needs sustenance. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he needs sustenance. True? He eat, he drink, right? So he falls into the category of creation. God doesn't rest and sleep. The creation rests and sleep. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he rests and sleep. He falls into the category of creation. He falls into the category of creation. He is the creation. He don't even have little the characteristic of God. He is just a creation. He's just a prophet, a messenger. Okay, the next approach is you have to listen carefully. If your friend is a Christian, you don't use Jesus as an example. If he is a Buddhist, you don't use Siddhartha Gautama as an example. Can you understand this? Yes. Okay, let's say he's a Buddhist, for example. Na'uzubillah, you're a Muslim. Okay. Let's say your neighbor is a Buddhist. Let's say your neighbor is a Buddhist, right? So you can use Jesus as an example. First, you start with Muhammad first, Sallallahu first, then you start with Jesus. You put Jesus first. Now, God is ever living, creation is not ever living. What about Jesus? He is not ever living. Then he falls into the category of creation. Okay? What else? God has no beginning, no ending. Creation has beginning, ending. What about Jesus? He has a beginning. Remember, if you read the Bible in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 2, verse number 3, he was born in Bethlehem. And I think about next month, the Christians here, they are going to celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus. Right? He has a beginning, the birth of Jesus. So he falls into the category of creation. Next, God is not bounded by time, space and mass. Jesus is bounded by time, space and mass. God doesn't need sustenance, he needs sustenance. God doesn't rest and sleep, he rests and sleep. Look at the characteristic of Jesus Christ. He falls into the category of creation. He don't have the characteristic of the Creator. That's why we Muslims, we don't worship Jesus. We follow Jesus, we respect Jesus, we love Jesus. Then you can put Gautama Buddha, Kuan Yin, Shiva, Krishna, Brahma, whatever. Just put. And what do you get end of the day? Everything in this universe you put into the test, you realize that all of them fall into this category, creation. So we Muslim, La ilaha illallah. So you discuss like this. We don't have to talk about my religion, your religion, interpret their scripture, but you're giving people a clear picture that what is the meaning of La ilaha illallah in a simplest way. Any questions? Yes, my dear.
So here in Australia, a lot of the younger generation, they don't identify as Christians or any one religion per se. It's more agnostic. How do we get, how do we cross to that border when it's agnostic and they don't really have a specified belief because they don't believe in, anything, but they believe that there is a God. How do you go around that?
Interesting. Which means they do have some certain belief, right? Use the same system to discuss with them. We talk about creator, creation. Yes, brother.
Follow-up question.
All right.
So from my own personal acquaintances and my own experience from talking with the lecturers in my university, some of them just flat out say they're atheists. So they're not agnostics in saying that they're not sure if there is a God. They just flat out believe that God doesn't exist.
Right.
So what then would the approach be?
Okay. I'll come to that. I'll finish this one first. It's about agnostic, right? Okay. What's the meaning of agnostic actually? What's the definition of agnostic?
So
You believe in a God, so that
You are not sure
but you're not sure
whether God exists or not exists. You do have certain belief.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
a definition that I've always read is the fact that agnostic literally translates to no knowledge, gnosis being the Greek word for knowledge. So in other words, they say that they don't have enough knowledge to say either
Yeah,
way.
either way, yes. Yeah. So if you want to put agnostic and atheist together, we can discuss about it. But if you want to discuss separately, we can go separately too. No problem. So what I would do is that, okay, just now that approach is basically I use it for those who believe in God, those who worship God, regardless whatever God. You can use that approach. But it won't work for the atheist, it won't work for the agnostic. Okay, agnostic, certain agnostic you can use because I did that before and it works. But it's not all. What I would do is that for the atheist and for the agnostic, generally I would say that they don't atheists, we know that those who are rejecting the existence of God. It's not those who don't believe in God, those who are rejecting the existence of God. Okay, I put that together in the same category. Now, what I would do is that, but all these people, usually they believe in science. When you talk about science, when you use scientific approach, usually much easier to penetrate them, to give them an idea. All right? Okay, what I will do is I will talk to them about the greatest discovery by the modern scientists in the 20th century. Do you know what is the greatest discovery by the modern scientists? The scientists discovered that the universe that we're living in today is expanding steadily. You remember Edwin Hubble? He used the huge telescope to look at the Earth and the galaxy. What did he discover? He discovered that the Earth and galaxy actually is moving away from one another. How many galaxies do we have in this universe?
In our universe,
Yeah, in this universe. The scientists, nine? Now, the scientists discovered that not less than 100 billion galaxy, up to 250 billion galaxy, through observation. So they discovered that the universe, you have not less than 100 billion galaxy. Just use 100 billion galaxy. And in each galaxy, they have not less than 100 billion stars, up to 300 billion stars. So if you want to know how many stars do we have in this universe, you have to multiply 100 billion with 100 billion. I'm not good at mathematics. What I want to say is that the universe is so unique. And the scientists discover, when they do their research, they discover that all these galaxies are moving away from one another. That's how they discover that the universe that we're living in today is expanding steadily. You know, expanding steadily? You blow the balloon, it expands. So the universe is expanding that way, continuously expanding. Stephen Hawking, through his book, The Brief History of Time, he do reverse study. He use calculation, reverse the time. He discovered that the universe is shrinking. It comes to a point of singularity. What does it mean? He discovered that the universe that we're living in today, there is a beginning. But he can't prove that how this point of singularity come to existence. He can only calculate up to a point of singularity. Which means the universe has a beginning. Now the question here is that since he can calculate to a point, come to a point of singularity, how can this first point of singularity come to existence?
The Big Bang Theory is the usual runaround that we get.
Okay, number one, can this point of singularity create himself? This point of singularity is dependent. It's dependent on something else, the amino acid. If he is dependent, can he create himself? Logically, no. It's just like your parents, your existence is dependent on your parents. Right? You have made a mistake. Okay? So which means if you are dependent on your parents, you can't create yourself. You can't exist by yourself. You are dependent. But if you say that this point of singularity can create himself, and then you are telling me that your mom can give birth of herself. So logically, it can create himself. Right? So is there any other interpretation? If he can't create himself, how can he come to existence? One interpretation is that it has to be created. Where the creator who created the point of singularity out of nothing. And from this point of singularity, it started to expand. And it took 14 billion years, which resulted the universe that we have today. In other words, the universe that we're living today, it was created. So I will use a scientific approach, the scientific discovery approach to explain to them. Well, it's up to individuals. Some people will have their own arguments, some people will have their belief, but this is what we can present to them. This approach that I will use to present to them. Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we continue. Yes, brother.
Sorry, do you have more to say, or is this already the Q&A?
We can continue. I will continue to talk until we finish the time. No worry. You can Q&A. I can continue.
Because I have a few other questions.
Right.
I have a few follow-ups on that too, but I'd rather you finish all the material you have planned first.
Well, it's okay. You can continue with your questions.
Right, okay. So, in connection to that, I suppose two questions that usually arise is, how do you know for sure that the point of singularity was created? Could it itself not have been ever living? And two, how do you make the jump from deism with a D to theism with a TH? So the difference between the two is a theistic God is the God that we know of. Allah is a theistic God, but a deistic God is a God that exists merely as the prime mover, merely as the creator. So even if you manage to get an atheist to become a deist, it's hard to bridge the gap between being a deist and being a theist. So yeah, that's my question.
Okay, repeat the first question.
Right. So the first question is,
We go one by one.
all right. So the first question is, in response to the singularity thing, how do you know for sure that the singularity point, the point of singularity, is not ever living the same way God could be?
No, it can't, because the point of singularity, as I said earlier, that this point is just like, for example, let's say I tell you there's a primitive cell. Let's say this is a cell, and this cell is dependent on protein or amino acid. If he is dependent, he can never be ever living. He is dependent.
But
He can't create by himself. Yeah.
but But the point of singularity isn't a living organism. It is not a cell. It is something that not even physicists understand completely yet, because the laws of physics break down when it comes down to calculating that thing. So we just really don't know.
Yeah. You see, as I said earlier, that when the universe is shrinking up to a point of singularity, come to this point of singularity, now, what explanation do we have? Now we have to look for the possibility explanation. But by the possibility explanation saying that it creates by himself, it won't work, because it doesn't work that way. Because it dependent. What it dependent is another. What are the things that he dependent is we can discuss on that later. But the point is, he himself independent. He cannot come to existence by himself. So what are the explanation you think that you can have is that besides it was created, what else do we have?
It's always been there.
No, it's not possible. Yeah.
I also do not understand how it couldn't have just always been there.
Okay.
The most, in relation to that, the most ones that I get is that it's a matter of probability. No matter how small, they said it's still possible. And they just don't accept the question of impossible. So it's all.
As I said earlier, I'm just giving you this idea that is what the scientists discover and leading us into this conclusion. As I said, it's open for interpretation. It is not the only interpretation. Because basically, if you talk about God, I can't bring God and show it to you. Neither you can tell me that He doesn't exist. The only thing is what we can do is we are using the external evidence, scientific, conscience approach, scripture approach, logic approach, various approaches that we use, external evidence that to support is what we believe. Yeah.
Alright, so second question?
Yep. Can you repeat the second question?
No worries. So the second question is, so if we use that argument, the prime mover argument, to say that because the universe had to exist, something had to have created it, some atheists could be converted into deists with a D. So deists believe that there is a God, but that God exists only to start things off. He exists only as a creator. He doesn't demand anything more. So he exists only to answer that question. So to make the jump between deism with a D and theism with a TH, which is what Islam or Christianity or Judaism is, where the God has his own commandments and he has the ways that he wants us to live our lives. How do you bridge that gap?
Okay.
Because, as a footnote, I have a few friends who are deists. They believe that God exists, but they don't believe that God tells them to pray 5 times a day, to eat only these specific things, and so on and so forth. So how do you bridge that gap?
Okay, now the first part is that once we settle the first part about creator, there's a creator who exists, who created the universe. We've settled the first part, we agree the first part, right? Now, we believe that the creator who created us and put us in this universe, in this earth, and we believe that he will provide guidance to us. God will provide guidance. It's just like a mom who gave birth a child. You will just put the child, throw the child, put anywhere. You will actually guide the child. Am I right? So we believe that God, okay, I'm not saying God like a human being. I'm just giving you the example that if God created us, he will surely provide guidance. Okay, that's why God chose the prophets among the community, the best among the community, and give them the revelation and to guide people so that we can be successful in this earth and in the hereafter. So we are guided. You see, human beings are not perfect. Human beings need guidance. That's why we go to school, we study and things like that. We need guidance. And sometimes, if we don't have a specific guidance, a divine guidance, we do not know up to which level we can do, up to which level we can do. We do not know the level. But in Islam, God, we believe that send the prophet with the scripture, with the revelation to guide us so that we can return to him, so that we be successful in this earth as well as hereafter. So we know our level, up to which level, what to do, what not to do. But of course, not everything Allah explained to us why. Not everything. Yeah, some people say, why? There are certain things that when we study, we know that we can understand why Allah forbid it. For example, alcohol, right? You see, before you drink, usually, I was a drinker before, quite a very heavy drinker before Islam. So I'm sure that all of you have not tried before. Difficult to explain. So usually before you drink, you are a nice person, man. Hi, how are you? Everything is okay. But after 2 hours of drinking, what will happen? You started to change. You are intoxicated. So what happened? Usually when you drive, what will happen? When you talk, things started to change. Your behavior started to change because of it's intoxicate you. That's why, and a lot of things happen if you were, I do not know here, you're back to Malaysia, you just got, when you're in Kuala Lumpur, every Friday night and Saturday night, you just have to break 2 groups. One group go to the HUKM, the emergency ward. After midnight, you just stay there for 3 hours. The other group go to the Balai Police, the police station. All right? And you realize that there's a lot of fighting, accidents, whatever, due to what? Due to intoxicated. I'm saying just example. So that's why in Islam, if Allah started to allow us to drink, everybody will say that, no, I'm not a heavy drinker. I am just a social drinker. Everybody will say this. You can say like this. No, I can control myself. Yes, you're a social drinker. You can control yourself. I have no problem about you can control yourself. But you cannot control the people surrounding you. The group, the gang, the friend that went out together with you, the moment you say you want to go to the toilet, when you come back, your mouth is full of alcohol. Do you know how I know? Because I was a drinker. This is what happened to me. So what I'm trying to say is that human beings do not know the limit. That's why you need certain guidance. Yeah. So, brother, to conclude that we believe that God created us, this universe, number one, and when He created us, He surely provide guidance for us so that we live righteously in this earth, so that we live successful in this earth. Okay? Yeah. So for those who believe in God, they have yet to believe that He need guidance. But there are many things that in life, when we live, we have a lot of things that we want to know. But how are you going to get the answer when you don't have divine guidance? So as a Muslim, we believe that God will send the Prophet and give them the revelation as a guidance for mankind. Wallahu alam. Any more questions? What about the sisters?
What about the free thinker? You have the atheist, you have the agnostic. What about the free thinker?
Free thinker, you want the definition or you want to talk about the da'wah?
Talk about the whatever.
Oh, whatever. You go to restaurant, you ask the waitress come and ask you, what do you like to have? Whatever. Okay, it's okay. Now, free thinker are those people that actually, a lot of free thinker, they do believe in God, but they doesn't want to belong to a particular religion, simply because they are, in their angle, they notice that most religion have certain weaknesses, have certain that it's not logical, it's not convincing. That's why they choose to be free thinker. I do believe it's God, but it's not my kind of religion that I like. Things like that. So those people who are free thinker, I think the first thing you need to let them know is that you need to let them know the creator and creation approach first. You know why? Because they do believe. So you want to make sure that they really know about the creator and they know that everything in this universe are creation. Start with that first. And then we talk about the scripture. Step number 2. Okay? Now, when you talk about scripture, I think, okay, just for discussion purposes. Now, if we believe that there's a scripture, God that will reveal the scripture as a guidance, okay, number 1, what is the condition for the scripture if it comes from God? The scripture must be survived history. The scripture must not have gone through any corruption, any changes. It has to be the same to the day of judgment, meaning that when God revealed the revelation to the prophet, and that message must survive history. must not gone through any changes. But now you just have a look. Which scripture today in the world today doesn't gone through changes? They still have the original scripture. I'm talking about the original. Number 2, language. Language. You see, most religious scripture, their original language is either die or dying. The language must be alive. In order for you to understand the message, it must be a spoken language. It must be a written language. It must be the language that people talk, use all over. If you can understand the language, the original language, then you can understand the message. But if you use the translation, how can you understand the original message? If you don't have the original text, if the language already died, if that language where people don't speak anymore, don't write anymore, don't memorize anymore, by the end of the day, how can you understand that message? If the scripture is from God, it must provide guidance. Guidance about issue of muamalat, guidance about issue of ibadah and akidah. God provide guidance so that, about issue of muamalat, we know up to which level. About issue of akidah or ibadah, we know. So if it is from God, these are the basic criteria you must fulfill. But if otherwise, how can you understand the message? It's just like Buddhism, for example, the Tripitaka. The original scripture is in Pali, but they don't have that scripture anymore. What they have is that it's in Mandarin, Chinese language, already translated to Chinese language. Now, if you don't have the original, how can you understand? Can you understand the original message by reading the translation? It's not equal. I always tell people that if you were to read the Quran, okay, the translation is not equal to the words of Allah. Can you agree with me? Yeah. Translation is helping us to understand some of the meaning. But if you can understand the Arabic language, then you can understand better. You can understand the message of Allah better. Can you understand this? But if you don't have the original scripture anymore, how can you understand the true message? How are you going to do the interpretation when you don't even understand the language, the actual language in Pali? How many Buddhists speak Pali? Can you understand this? It's just like the Bible, for example. The Bible is supposed to preserve in the ancient Hebrew and ancient Aramaic. Okay? The Bible. Because this is the language, the original language. But how many people today speak ancient Hebrew, ancient Greek? Ancient Aramaic. So, number one, they don't have the original. Number two, the language that people no longer speak about it. So how can you understand the original message? That's why in Christianity, they still debate until today whether Jesus Christ called God as Father. After 2,000 over years, they still debate today. Why? Because you don't have the original to refer. You don't have original to double check. In Islam, if you were to read the translation, if anything that you are not happy about it, don't worry. We go back to the original text and we understand the Arabic and then we explain to you this is the context, this is the meaning. Then you realize that the translation. The problem is come from where? It's come from somewhat translation, inaccurate translation. Yeah.
Going along on what you just said about Christianity and the different books that they have, why, from your experience and your comparative studies, why do they have the different books? Is it because of interpretation, because of...
Different books means what?
The different scriptures or different followings that they have
You're talking about different translation?
No.
No. Different books? What do you mean?
Maybe the book of Luke, the book of Matthew, the Gospel.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
this one actually, I was following actually.
Why the different books?
Are you referring to like a King James version or a...
Yep.
So we're going
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's why I would like to ask you, which one are you referring to? If you are talking about which translation, Different thing talk. If you talk about which books, which surah, I use the word surah so that you can understand which surah are you referring to. Are you asking about surah or asking about the translation?
First one is a surah. I mean,
Okay, Catholic Bible, the Douay version Bible have 73 surah. I use surah, like if I use books, maybe you might think that 73 books. No, it's just one book have 73 booklets. Hope you can understand that. So Catholic Bible have 73 books or surah. Catholic Protestant Bible have 66. So Catholic Bible have extra 7 books that the Protestant do not have. Are you asking me about this?
yes.
Okay. Now, for Catholic, they have extra 7 books. Okay. They call it second canonical. I think difficult for you to understand. I use Islamic term. The 66 books that Catholic have, okay, is Sahih Bukhari. Just as an example, it's authentic. The extra 7 books, okay, probably is Sunan Abu Dawud, Tirmizi. It is Hasan. It's not Sahih, but it's as Hasan. It's a different level. Can you understand this?
Yeah.
For Protestant, their Bukhari is only the 66 books. For them, that 7 books, that extra 7 books, okay, is weak, is doubtful. They call it apocrypha. So it's just like you say a mawdu or da'if. That's why they reject. So it's khilaf in their religion. Now, if you were to ask me which version of the Bible, or in English Bible, the Bible itself, for Protestant, they have not less than 55 different versions. If you want to ask me which one, then we talk one by one. You give me the name, I will give you the, the differences. But what I'm trying to say is that most Christians have the perception that the Bible, Holy Bible, there's only one. The clear-cut Bible, you can see Catholic and Protestant is different. Clear? Now, the Protestant Bible is not one. Most people thought that it is translation. No, it is version. It's not referring to translation. Translation means, if, for example, Mary say that, I know a man, or no man has touched me. Both is just a choice of words, a different translation, but referring to the same meaning. But if you, what I'm trying to say is that the difference is because of the version. For example, if you were to read in the book of Mark, chapter number 16, verse number 1 to number 8, if you were to read the RSV Bible, the Revised Standard Version, produced in 1952, okay, this chapter 16 Mark only have verse 1 to number 8. Okay? But if you were to read the King James Bible, our brothers mentioned just now, or you're familiar with King James, so King James Bible, okay, they have verse number 1 to number 20. So verse number 1 to number 8, this Bible, verse number 1 to number 20, is it a different version here? This is what I mean about different version. It's not different translation. You have extra that this book don't have. This is called different version. But I can continue give you not less than, there are 42 footnotes in the Bible. You know footnotes?
Yes.
You're not familiar. Okay, footnotes, or the verse number 9 to number 20 is originally a footnote actually. Yeah. So the Christian scholar, 32 scholar of the highest eminence and backed by 50 cooperative denomination, they threw this, they don't believe that this is the words of God. That's why they put it as a footnote. Yeah. So that's why if you talk about this, you can see so many different versions of the Bible because they have 42 footnotes. Some believe that the whole footnotes is become the words of God. That's why they put into the Bible. Some say no, part of it. Some say no, the full text must be in the Bible. It is their belief. Yeah. So now you can differentiate books as well as version. Yeah. Hope answer your question.
Yeah. So actually, the question was leading up to this, right? This, like you said earlier, it was done many years ago. using the same ideology or context, it can mean in the future they can have another version. Is that a right statement to say?
No, we are talking about you must have the original scripture, the text. It's just like the Quran, the Arabic text. It is the Quran which Allah revealed to Muhammad SAW 1,400 years ago, and that message, that Quran, till today, this is the same Quran that we are reading today. I'm asking about the Bible that which was revealed to Jesus Christ, for example, the Gospel, for example, or the Injil, for example. We are asking about the original text, because Jesus Christ speak Aramaic, but his message preserved in Greek language. Can you imagine? I'm a Chinese, but my message is preserved in Tamil language, Indian language or Tamil language. It doesn't work like that. Can you understand this? Yeah. Any more question about da'wah? The topic is about da'wah, right? We are going very far away.
No, okay. Since we don't have much time.
Oh,
right.
How much?
10 more minutes. Right?
10 more minutes, okay.
Okay. We are now living in a Western context where we are exposed to the non-Muslim all the time, and da'wah is actually something that required for us to give da'wah. Now the issue is, how are we supposed to just approach anyone and start talking about Islam? You know what I mean? It start to do that, it will be reviewed and looked upon. Is it compulsory for us, to start preaching, especially for the young one? And when you said you have to start to believe in God and such, or what's your advice? How should we approach?
I think what we need to do is we need to do things gradually, step by step. Do not rush to anything. For example, because I do not know, just now I asked the MC about the background of the people here, so that if for example, can I write something? What I would do is that for everyone here, what we need to do is, probably we need to understand about this. The Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is in Melbourne, right? No, it's in Mecca. Okay, sorry. I'm a revert, so I'm not so sure. Okay, so Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam initially. It's in Mecca. For how many years here? It's 13 years. Later part, Quran was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in Melbourne. Right? Melbourne? No, it's in Medina, right? For how many years? It's about 10 years. Altogether, it's about 23 years. Quran was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was revealed start from Mecca, gradually, bit by bit, for 13 years. Agree? Majority verses was revealed in Mecca. It's talk about Aqidah or talk about Fiqh? It's talk about Aqidah. Okay. And the companions, later on when their Aqidah is strong, then Allah revealed the Quran in Medina, and mostly the verses in Medina talk about what? Aqidah or Fiqh? Actually, it's talk about both. But generally, people will start to use the Fiqh, start to reveal in Mecca, in Medina. So, the Fiqh here. Now, when we learn about Islam, we should start from here first. Focus on Aqidah first. What is the meaning of Aqidah? Oh, 10 minutes, huh? Cannot. Okay, when we talk about Aqidah, what is Aqidah? We know about, actually Aqidah is talking about what?
Knowing God.
Knowing God, what else? Belief, okay. Hello? Ikatan? Okay, so never mind, just go straight. For the first 13 years, Allah wants us to know about Him and know about the prophets, the life of the prophet, talk about ethics, talk about moral, these are the things, talk about Aqidah. Okay? Once the Aqidah is strong, when they migrate to Medina, then Allah revealed the verse about Fiqh, the do and don'ts, bit by bit. It's not one shot, it's just bit by bit. Come, have a look at this. For the first 13 years, okay, when the verse was revealed in Mecca, the companions are drinking alcohol. The Sahabat, they are drinking alcohol. Allah never make it haram. The Prophet never make it haram. Can you agree with me? And later part, when their Aqidah is already ready, then they migrate to Medina, 14, 15, 16, 17. After 17 years, only Allah revealed the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse 790. To make it haram, alcohol is haram. After 17 years. If someone want to know about Islam, don't start with do and don't first. Or okay, never mind. Let me ask you a question. If I want to build a high-rise building, a 10-story building, what do I build first, the wall or the ceiling? Good. Some people say wall. I heard just now. Okay, so the 13 years is about the foundation. So we should focus a lot about the foundation first, not the do and don'ts. You know why a lot of young people, they don't like about Islam? They are not interested about Islam because we talk too much about the do and don'ts. We talk too much about the hukum. True? You know, for the sister at the back, you know your hijab, Allah doesn't reveal in Mecca. It was revealed the year 19, towards the end of the wahyu. Then Allah revealed hijab for the men and women. But today, if one sister embraces Islam, I pass it to you, to the Muslimah at the back, what would you do to her? What are the first things that in your mind? Yeah, you want to cover her, right? You want to transform her, right? What I'm trying to say is that the approach that we use is always opposite. That is not the right way of approach. So when you want to do da'wah to people, it depends. Like for example, our brother asked, should we start to do da'wah now? Now what I would say is that, can we start with discuss about your fundamental understanding first? If I have a time, I will discuss with you about your fundamental understanding. Once it's done, then only we started to talk about how can we start to do da'wah. Do da'wah, you need to come for certain courses. When you attend some of the training, I will show you the easiest, the simplest way of conveying the message. And every one of us can do. Da'wah is not meant for the one who can talk very well. No, da'wah is meant for everyone. Do the da'wah according to your situation, your level. Do da'wah according to what you can, and do your best according to your situation. It's not talking about you have to give speech, you have to, you must learn how to dialogue, you must know how to debate. No. You do according to your situation. That is your da'wah. But in order to do that, you have to attend some courses. If you're interested in future, if we have opportunity, I will show you some technique of, very simple technique of presenting Islam, simple technique of answering questions, so that you can actually make the non-Muslim interested to Islam. You can make them, embrace Islam, inshallah. You want me to give you an example?
Yes, that's fine.
Let me think. Okay. I came back from London the other day. I went to Speaker Corner. Do you have Speaker Corner here in Melbourne? No, you have in London. You see, one of the things that we need to learn is that when people ask questions, okay, or people accuse certain things, we have to be very calm and understand what they are asking and how to reply. For example, people accuse Prophet Muhammad SAW pedophile, for example. In fact, a short answer you can reply is what? The short answer. It never an issue until the 19th century. It never an issue. You can reply in that. Number one. Number two, problem people is that they use our situation today to judge what has happened 1,400 years ago. This is a problem. Why? Because previously, marriage is the family affair, got nothing to do with the government. Today, the marriage is the government put a limit. They call it maslahah. They put a limit at age, a standard age for everyone, minimum to get married. So it's different. You cannot use our situation today to judge what's happened previously. The next one, when the Prophet married Aisha radiallahu anha, does she get the consent from the father? The parents, the father? Yes. So the parent is the one who make decision during those times. Number one. Number two, is there any, after the marriage, is there any problem with the Arab people, Arab community? Is there anybody protest? Is there anybody disagree? No. What about the enemy? Remember the enemy of Prophet Muhammad SAW? The ketua munafik, the head of the munafik? Abdullah bin Ubay, Abu Lahab, Abu Jahal. These are the enemy that always try to look for trouble, try to look problem with the Prophet, trouble with the Prophet, try to find excuse, try to look problem with the Prophet. But the question here is, do all this enemy complain, protest, or disagree with that marriage? No, even the enemy have no problem. Now just have a look. Family, no problem. Public, no problem. Even the enemies have no problem. Then what is your problem? Now you can continue now. I mean, just to give you an idea, this, you know which part of the things that the non-Muslim misunderstanding about Islam. They thought that when the hadith mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet married Aisha radiallahu anha at the age of 6. He thought that the Prophet, after marriage Aisha, they live in. That is not true. That is not true. She continued to live with her father until she achieved puberty at the age of 9 plus, nearly 10 years old. Okay? Then the Prophet came to her and asked her, are you ready to live in? The Prophet said, if you are not ready, go ahead, stay with your father until you are ready. And of course, later she says she's ready. The Prophet brought her home. Now, the question here is, what is the problem? There are two, if you have a look here, there are two things very important that we need to know. Their marriage is giving guidance to mankind till the judgment day. Okay? What age can a woman get married or have sexual intercourse in Islam? At what age? At what situation? There are two situations. Achieve puberty, number one. Number two, the Prophet is waiting for her, mentally, physically ready. So when not every woman, when not every child or women achieve puberty, you are mentally, physically ready. You remember your time, sister at the back. So the Prophet, it's not only she's achieved puberty, the Prophet have to wait for her mental and physical ready. So which means when the Prophet brought her home, she's adult, she's not a child anymore. Can you understand this? And she's guided by the sisters. I'll use the word sisters, or what do you call in Malay? Madu? Madu asli? Means she's guided. What is the problem? If she were to have an affair, if the Prophet would have affair with her at the age of 6, do you think she can grow up properly? Do you think her mind, her thinking will be okay? No. She'll get confused. Right? Trauma probably. But if you were to look at Aisha radiallahu anha, she memorized the whole Quran. She narrated not less than 2,210 hadiths. She became the advisor for the 4 caliphs. And she trained, she guided not less than 88 scholars. And she also expert in medicine as well as mathematics. Her thinking is so sharp, is so good. How can you say that she have an affair at the age of 6? So we slowly explain. But the answer is, usually it takes me 1 hour, 1.5 hours to explain. But I just give you point form so that you have an idea. So when people ask something, you must know how to reply. If you cannot reply and remember the whole answer, at least the basic answer, the important answer you need to know. If you're interested to learn all these questions, how to answer, we can organize a training just maybe for 1 whole day, talk about all the questions that people ask about Islam, the technique of replying. It's not just replying, but you must know the technique of replying the questions. Okay, I think the time's up.
Any question? Any question?
Yeah. Any question? Yeah.
Oh, I have a few.
Okay.